Hi, thank you for joining me today. I'm Sahadev, but you can call me Saha, and I'm a writer and sub-editor for MulaZine, a collective and independent zine that champions community-based creative expression, collaboration, awareness, and appreciation. So with that said, I'm very thrilled that you have given us the opportunity to interview you in conjunction with Hari Malaysia. So before we get the ball rolling, why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself and where you're from?
Hi everyone at MulaZine. My name is Duena and I am currently staying in, I was born and raised and currently staying in Papar, Sabah. So day to day, I'm a practicing mechanical engineer based in the Kadazan Dance district of Pinampang. I've been doing this for this consultant, mechanical and electrical engineering consultant firm for about a year now, a year plus. And besides that, I run a Learn Kadazan Instagram page where I promote and teach the use of the Kadazan language. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Asila and I was born and bred in Kuching, Sarawak. I'm a mix of Melanau and Chinese. And in a few days' time, I'll be starting my law degree at LSE. I hope that in the years to come, I'll be able to gain invaluable experiences and ultimately be able to empower the Sarawakians when I'm back. Yeah. Well?
No problem. Hi, my name is Muhammad Junaid. Most of my friends know me as Mo. I was practicing law previously. Asila and I are actually cousins. I'm half Malay, half Melanau. And I've just recently returned to Sarawak after many years in West Malaysia. It is my desire actually to see Sarawak advance and flourish. Yeah. That's all. Please take it back to you, Saha.
This interview is to basically uplift the voices of the average Sabahan and Sarawakian youth in tandem with Hari Malaysia. So, because youth voices are essential, because decisions and policies that are made today will directly affect us in the future. So on that basis, I think it's very important to highlight there are many amongst us today who aren't able to distinguish the differences between Merdeka and Malaysia Day and their significance.
Yes.
So for a short history lesson, Merdeka is widely celebrated because it was the day Peninsula Malaysia or West Malaysia that used to be known as Malaya were emancipated from British rule, and it commemorates the Malayan Declaration of Independence on August 31st of 1957. However, Sabah was only granted self-government by the British on 31st August 1963, and Sarawak gained its independence much earlier on July 22nd of 1963. So in the meantime, September 16, Hari Malaysia brings a completely different meaning and is basically the formation of Malaysia based on the agreement between Sabah, Sarawak, Singapore, and the Federation of Malaya. That is why Malaysia Day is equally important because it is basically when Malaysia was technically conceived, and I believe such acknowledgement is necessary because many Malaysians still assume Sabah and Sarawak's independence falls on the same day as August 31st, 1957, similar to the Federation of Malaya, but that is not the fact. So my question is this: what are your thoughts as a native Sabahan and Sarawakian on the fact that many Malaysians tend to associate Merdeka as an all-inclusive independence day, and what can we or even the government do as the voices for the future generation to educate the message between the fact and fiction?
I think as a Sarawakian, I don't think we fault West Malaysia for wanting to celebrate Merdeka on 31st. And understandably, it holds a significance to all West Malaysians. It's your Independence Day. And actually, being half West Malaysian myself, I do appreciate that day. And in turn, for Sarawakians and Sabahans too, we have our own Independence Day and we celebrate it separately from West Malaysia. And West Malaysia has historically respected that decision of ours to do so. So, I think it's important here that East Malaysians do not deny the West Malaysians of the importance of 31st August and vice versa. Now, in my opinion, there's really no need actually to make it any more or less inclusive. Also, Malaysians really just celebrated hand in hand the different dates, as that was the date our Malaysian siblings, attained their independence. Now, just as when I believe from my stories, my parents would tell me West Malaysians too celebrated when Sarawak obtained their independence back in '62. ultimately, Independence Day, it was a celebration of freedom, the end of direct imperialism, the beginning of self-governance. And these are things that all people should cherish, especially since it was denied to us for over 100 years due to colonialism. Now, why too should Sarawakians celebrate 31st? And I think they should, because it's a celebration of a common struggle, a brotherhood. I would not tell a non-Muslim not to attend a neighbor's Chinese New Year's. Sorry, I would not tell a Muslim not to attend a Chinese New Year celebration or vice versa. For ultimately, it's us celebrating it together as a fraternity, a common society. Now, and you mentioned September 16th as well, and Independence Day. The two of them are different dates. They shouldn't be conflated. One is independence, and September 16th is a celebration of hope, of the hope that our founding fathers had when they envisioned the advancement and flourishing of Malaysia through a union which included Malaya, Sabah, Sarawak, and of course Singapore. And we may have each obtained our independence separately, but it is our common aspiration to flourish commonly.
Yeah.
Silla?
Yeah, I completely agree with Mo. However, and in my case, I remember studying sejarah just recently in high school, and not once was Sarawak Independence Day mentioned. So I do understand when Malaysians associate Merdeka as an all-inclusive Independence Day, because I guess there wasn't enough awareness in high school. So the government should definitely add it into the sejarah syllabus, at least so people will understand. But I definitely agree with Mo that it's a common struggle that we were all facing back then, and we should all celebrate it together no matter what. Yeah.
So how we feel about this is, I feel like it's been forced down our throats. Like we have to say Happy Independence Day, Malaysia, and then I don't worry so much that that it's not Malaysia Day may or may not be as celebrated, but just don't say that, because that's not true. I feel like, and also maybe I feel like coincidentally Sabah Self-Governance Day falls on the same date, just a few years later, and we completely neglect. I think during this Malaysia Day or maybe previous years, I've never heard on any like national broadcast of anything or any ads, or maybe just on Instagram and Facebook. There was no mention about it. Even Petronas didn't mention about Sabah Self-Governance Day. It's just Selamat Hari Merdeka Malaysia. And I mean, to see that on such a big scale and it's still happening, it just feels like, no. That also kind of answers the question. I saw the list of questions, and one of the questions was, do stereotype? I feel like that is also a stereotype, where people think that we don't know, and that what we feel don't matter. It does, and we do know. So stop saying that. I guess what they can do is they can try to not reintroduce, but I don't know, like find some way to make it equal, like put us at the same threshold, put us on the same foothold, because I don't think that anybody benefits anything. If anything, we're just propagating a lie. Yeah. So I think it's just try to make it equal.
Yeah, and I agree, because I think it's important to take note of the true fact of Sabah and Sarawak's independence and acknowledge it in history textbooks, so that future generation will be able to perceive this information, and this information will not get lost in translation in the future. And here's a fact, because prior to 2010, Malaysia Day was only observed as a state public holiday in Sabah and Sarawak, but it was only declared a public holiday nationwide only in October 2009, 46 years after Malaysia was formed. So the truth is that Merdeka Day still continues to overshadow Malaysia Day, and there is even some criticism that Hari Merdeka tend to be too Malaya centric. So because many still assume that Malaysia Day is just a public holiday, they don't try to understand the significance behind it. And the Malaysia today will not be the same Malaysia without our sister states, Sabah and Sarawak, being the biggest oil producing states. East Malaysian contributed, their equal share, if not more, to the formation of Malaysia. But the fact is, like, those states are always the first to receive the short end of the stick. And Sabah and Sarawak will promise safeguards covering religious freedom, the position of indigenous races, education, representation in the
Equal
federal
educational
parliament.
opportunity. Yeah.
Yes. and all of that. But,
Not
you
yet.
know, the
Yeah.
reality is far from it, you know. So, like,
Yeah.
my question is, what are some of the challenges you face as a native in East Malaysia growing up and even now? And what are some of the issues that you're passionate about now and want to highlight as a potential change agent given your past experiences?
So I grew up in the city, Kuching. So I would consider myself a very, very fortunate Malaysian. You know, not just a native in East Malaysia. A lot of the problems, such as poverty and lack of infrastructure, is faced by every state, not just East Malaysia. Okay. And I do acknowledge that there are many out there facing struggles, especially in the rural area. And I can never truly understand how it feels like to be in their shoes. I myself have not faced these challenges as they do on a daily basis. That being said, these struggles should not be dismissed or belittled because I've seen firsthand that they still exist. Okay, so compared to many, many years ago, we're doing pretty well as Sarawakians, but we still need attention to solve issues like I mentioned, poverty, inequality, lack of access to jobs, etc. The list goes on. I'm definitely not an expert in economics or in this field, but I do believe that as Sarawakians or as Malaysians, it is our equal responsibility to give back to society. We need to educate and give opportunities to the poor individuals to break the cycle of deprivation. And one thing I think that's specific to Sarawak is that people need to realize that we have so many talented and potential individuals here in Sarawak that just goes unnoticed. There is a lack of opportunities for them to nurture the skills. Personally, I have friends who are extremely talented in athletics, football, futsal, or singing, but it just goes unnoticed. So I think that the government or private companies or the general public should take the chance on us Sarawakians and invest in us. You know, invest in our talent, which we have. Yeah, and I think most importantly is that us Sarawakians, we do have the opportunity to expand. We have the land to scour, we have access to water, and most importantly, we have extremely intelligent natives who understand the earth and the earth's resources. We aren't squeezed to the corner of a city, and we still have the capacity to plan properly and to grow. So the most important thing is we Sarawakians have to have faith. Yeah. Mo?
Now, Saha, I hope you'll forgive me, but the draft questions you provided me actually was what was the challenges I face as a native in West Malaysia, actually. And
Yeah, that was
kind of
like my error.
no, it's all right because I prepared my answer on that basis, and I actually thought that this was a bit more of an interesting question to ask. What was it like me as an East Malaysian coming to West Malaysia?
Yeah.
Now, I've spent around 6 years on and off in West Malaysia. And in my time here, I've traveled to most corners of West Malaysia. I've worked in KL for a number of years. I've met West Malaysians from all parts of Malaysia, from Kedah, Kelantan, down to Johor. And I've been fortunate that I generally find all West Malaysians to be extremely hospitable and accommodative. Now, yes, KL is unlike anything in Sarawak. It's far more developed, far more advanced, but it is also a unique city unto itself in Malaysia. I found that people from all states throughout Malaysia encounter some form of difficulty when they initially migrate from the rural to the urban areas like KL. And this is not an issue, I think, which is unique to Sarawakians. The urban perception of rural backwardness is not uncommon anywhere in the world, but upon the provision of factual information, usually misconceptions can often be corrected. Now, I do not deny that Sarawak still has a lot of development to undertake, but so do many parts of Malaysia. And understandably, we have to also appreciate that West Malaysia had a head start dating back to our colonial history. West Malaysia had the resources of the British Empire, while Sarawak was under the Brooks. There is a distinction. Prior to Sarawak becoming a crown colony, we were the Kingdom of Sarawak. We had a unique position within the British Empire, which is unlike West Malaysia. But there is no love loss or jealousy among Sarawakian against West Malaysia. West Malaysia has often given us a helping hand. It has ultimately been a mutually beneficial union, and I hope the spirit of that union lives on. There may be bickering again now and then between Sarawak and West Malaysia, or East Malaysia and West Malaysia, but even siblings bicker without making them any less of a family. Ultimately, this is quite an issue I take on quite passionately. building that union? Yes.
Challenges that I face definitely when it comes to when we talk about like equal educational opportunity rights, for example, for scholarships and even chances to earn a job. I think one of the most fundamental things growing up, I'm now 25, is that I think I was only introduced to the internet when I was in Form 3, if not later on. So, and even if I did know what was internet and what was YouTube, that was still like even now I don't have good internet connection. So that definitely deters like studying and getting more resources. So it may seem that I'm not as advanced when it comes to how I get my information. So that's one. And then I think recently the first thing that I can think of when it comes to challenges is that bullying happens. Bullying in terms of people make fun of who I am and how I speak. Especially can I just tell you a story and how I relate to
sure.
this? So prior to entering the consultant firm that I'm now in, I did like a slim program with the Naga National Berhad, and then I was placed in Penang. So there was like 6 or 7 of us, and there was only one me from Sabah Sarawak. So there was this guy, I think he was from KL, and he looked down on me the most. Not minus the fact that I'm a woman engineer, and he made fun of my accent, and to the point that he saw me doing my own work, and you know what he did? He came up to me, he wanted to borrow stapler, he just put his hand inside my pencil box without even asking. And then when I stand up for myself, I literally stood in front of him. I said, "What's wrong with you?" And then he'll make fun of my accent. He said that I probably said something like, "Kenapa ba kau ni?" Which means, "Kenapa ba kau ni? Kenapa kau begini?" And then he'll start laughing. He'll be like, "Why do you talk like that? Kenapa kau ni? Kenapa kau cakap begitu?" When I'm frustrated, it's just that, and he'll just look down on me just because he's taller. So that's never fun, and it demotivates me being like in such a place work here. Is this how other people are going to see me? I can't express myself freely. I can't say what I want to say because of how I say it. So I have to belittle myself and try to learn how they speak more so than they want to learn how I speak or where I come from. So yeah, that's definitely a challenge for me. Besides that, I feel like when you're so, you don't want to upset these people. It's one thing like impressing them with your skills and your technical capabilities. It's another thing just to not be yourself. So I was scared that I wouldn't, and that's not including like if I make a mistake on reading the thermometer or something like that. For example, in groceries, I mean, most of my raising up was done in Sabah, so we're all pretty chill, and then we're all pretty like accepting because one thing I noticed is that when you're in Peninsula, you tend to speak like a lot of accents. Madam, the Chinese tend to speak one way, and then Indians and Malay tend to speak another way. But in Sabah, everybody speaks like me. There's no accent. There's like the Sabahan accent. So I think it like, yeah, it's a challenge to have to force yourself to speak another way when they can't apa ni? They can accept how you speak.
I definitely agree. I feel like, besides Sabah and Sarawak, there are many other states, especially in the rural areas, that are very less developed than other states. And, so instead of being equal partners, Sabah and Sarawak, among other states, are constantly being sidelined. And, Sabah and Sarawak are more than just states under the Malaysian Agreement of 1963. So Sabah and Sarawak are actually equal partners in the formation of Malaysia and not just individual peninsula states. So this means that Sabah and Sarawak have extra autonomy in the administration of land and immigration matter. I can only imagine the other issues in other states as well that are being swept under a rug, and the distress is definitely justified. It's like, how long are we supposed to turn a blind eye, for measures to actually be taken? So, with that said, growing up, I've heard stories about a lot of hardship from some of the communities in the rural areas, going to a great distance and extreme measures just to get to school and, acquire daily essential items. And I'm sometimes told to be grateful, but that is beside the point, because though I should be grateful, but why aren't the government improving the development? Because nobody should ever resort to such routes just to receive education or anything really. But the sad reality is such. So, with that said, do you believe that the infrastructure or lack thereof has built a society of individuals who kind of fetishizes struggles faced by the less unfortunate Sabahan and Sarawakian families?
I believe that I don't know how they think, but what from my perspective is that they probably it's like a big brother effect. It's like people you tend to think that you're the oldest sibling, so you get new books and you get new clothes, and then your younger siblings can just get the hand-me-downs. So that's how I feel. Like maybe people think that we're gonna do something about it, but probably later, because it won't make any difference. Like they've done it 15 years ago. They probably can wait another 15. Or once we set up this building here, then there's a better, more advanced if we get it now, like today, but we don't. So we end up just waiting and then thinking that, we can wait another 5 years, but we can't.
Now, again, I think it should be mentioned that in all parts of Malaysia, we still have children who have to undergo to extraordinary lengths in order to, let's say, obtain a formal education or just for subsistence. And again, I don't think this is a problem unique purely to Sabah and Sarawak. How much more prevalent it is in East Malaysia, I'm quite unaware of the figures. Now, of course, I agree with you. Our governments can and should always do better to secure greater and safer welfare for all Malaysians, prioritizing especially those in greater need. Now, I can't quite speak for Sabah, but with regards to Sarawak, we have to consider Sarawak's history, its landmass, its population distribution, and also it having arrived at the table of modernization later than West Malaysia. It was always to be expected that Sarawak had more catching up to do. Now, I personally think Sarawakians have done a brilliant job to have gotten to the way they are today, to where they are today, while still recognizing that there is still much more to be done. I've met many Sarawakians working professionally all across the world in all fields, and they may not know it, but Sarawak they've given Sarawak a reputation for being hardworking and compassionate people. Yes, so again, I know there is a general perception here that Sarawak, there is what's happened to the development. But if I could give you some statistics from what I'm aware, in just the last 40 years, since the early 1980s to let's say today alone, the levels of poverty, the levels of illiteracy has gone down quite significantly from rates of, I think with illiteracy, it was something like 60% down to maybe 2%, and even poverty has gone down sharply. And Sarawak, after all, is a transitioning society. We really have just been opened up to the world of globalization in the last 50 years. We must understand that we really have only been 2 generations since independence. It takes time, and that would be my emphasis. All of this will still take time, and the government does not have unlimited money. I don't mean to defend them, but just to be a bit more understanding.
Yeah, I do appreciate Mo's very logical approach, and I do agree with him. But I also understand the stress that the government needs to do something about this. However, I don't think fetishize is the right word to explain the situation. But do correct me if I'm wrong. I personally believe that with these news, for example in Sabah, where I think there was a boat that recently capsized, carrying students. I believe that the people are just trying to shed light to these problems because maybe in Sabah it's quite prevalent, but dangerous routes getting to school is a common thing in, I think, whole of Malaysia. Just that in Sabah maybe you have to cross the water, but students in West Malaysia also often get into car accidents. So it's there is some thinking we need to do there. So I think that whenever there is a problem, it's important to have news coverage to let the government know that our society is watching and demanding for something better as well.
Thank you. Because speaking of news coverage, I'm pretty sure you guys heard of Viviana Musibin, the 18-year-old girl from Sabah who had to resort to extreme measures just to sit for exams due to the lack of internet access. and that is like sending ripples through our community today. And it just goes to show the disparity of infrastructure in the country, not just in Sabah and Sarawak, but even other states as well. So like, the vast difference of between urban areas and rural area when it comes to connectivity is very prevalent, and it really makes you think about some of the privileges we have while our neighboring states are, constantly being neglected. But, moving on, my next question is, what are some of the stereotypes of misconception you would like to debunk regarding Sabah and Sarawakians, and why do you think these still remain widespread in the minds of Malaysians?
So I've lots to
Sorry.
say about this one.
Go ahead.
So when I was studying in the UK, so I did my A levels in the UK. I met lots of West Malaysians, and whenever I spoke to them about Sarawak, many of them often looked down on Sarawak. One person genuinely asked if I took the boat to KL, and this is 2020, by the way. They asked if I took the boat to KL, which was absurd because, I mean, if you think about it geographically, how do we use a boat to get to KL, right? Which is in the middle. So anyways, I think, no offense, but I do think that some West Malaysians can be quite ignorant about our social and economic situation in Sarawak, hence why some of them still think we live on trees. And okay, so this brings me to another point where some Malaysians think that in order to be successful, we need to have skyscrapers or trendy restaurants or etc. But that's not always the case, right? Sarawak is so successful in so many ways. We're harmonious, we're accepting of one another, we're rich with our culture and traditions, we take care of our land, and we're generally very happy people. That's what all my West Malaysian friends say. So, yeah. In Sarawak, we still have many native communities living in beautiful and modern long houses, with running water, astro, electricity, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. We are proud that we still hold on tight to our cultures and values, which ground us, so that we don't keep, mengejar dunia or keep chasing the world. So these native communities are the reason why us Sarawakians have such a unifying spirit. We truly care and love the people around us, regardless of race or religion, And Sarawak is so peaceful because of our community and our culture of respecting others. There was this one time when I was walking in Kuching, taking pictures around town with my best friend at a back alley, and a driver stopped by next to us, warning us that this area was a little bit dodgy, and asked us to walk back to the main area. And he drove the car slowly to, make sure that we were safe. And these are the type of people that you meet in Sarawak. We care, and we are so capable of uplifting each other. We don't just, live on trees and that's it, Yeah. Mo?
I fully agree with you. But again, I will definitely say my experience in West Malaysia, I think most West Malaysians, again, were very hospitable, very accommodative. Only on a handful of occasions have I really met someone who seriously holds the perception that East Malaysia is backwards. But I do take contention with that assertion. I mean, it is due to our different histories, our socio-political circumstances. Sarawak is going through a very different state of socioeconomic development, but it does not necessarily equate to backwardness. Development itself as well, it's not a race. It is a duty upon a state and its people to do it right. We should do away with looking down on groups on the basis that they may not be living the same lifestyle as oneself. Instead, we should see any difference in economic development as an opportunity to help uplift each other.
Yeah. Okay. Some of the stereotypes I think I've thought about is that they think they are as advanced as they are. So secondly is that the stereotype is that whatever that we do, be it travel or any administration work, is required to go through the federal government first, instead of we can just do it here because we can do it here. An example of this is recently I traveled to the States. This is pre-Dorona and all. And prior I had to transit in Japan. And the weird thing was I had to transit through KL when Japan was just like a direct flight. Because we have direct flights to China, but no direct flights to Japan. So that's one of the examples that why can't we do things on our own and theory that the electric trains be in KL, and why can't Sabah have the same thing? It's like whatever that they do, they must do it first, and then we travel down to Sabah Sarawak. And we go in Sabah Sarawak again. What's it called? That good speed internet. We don't have it here yet. And like Grab food. KL has it first, almost sensation. Why must we get the and meet at equal part? Comes to division of these things, we become a one over, and we sliding. That still needs to be debunked. Remain widespread in the minds of Malaysians. I don't know, because I don't think they would want to change. I think that they're comfortable knowing that let people think that Sabah and Sarawak needs to wait for us for our approval, needs to wait for us to determine whether they're done with this phase or not, and then we can go back to them. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I think it's really great that we're able to have some different perspective and outlook, especially from being a native in East Malaysia. So finally, to wrap up this interview, what advice would you be able to impart to the future generation activists from your community, and how do you think they can play a part, as little as they may be, in helping fix and amend what needs to be fixed? And similarly, how do you think they can do things differently to keep their heritage and culture alive?
I'll take this one first. Now, actually, this has been an advice I've been giving to many Sarawakians for a while now, to both new and future generations. I would say this. Now, to modernize does not simply mean to westernize. There are countless ways in which we can modernize while preserving and evolving our own culture. Nations such as Japan, China, South Korea are but a few countries that have proven as such. Now, as a Sarawakian, I am excited as we are still in the formative years of molding an ideal Sarawakian identity, an identity that reflects the harmony of our diverse social communities. We are a people who are formidable but loving, intelligent and hardworking, a people not threatened by change, but approach it with adaptability and foresight. Now, in doing so, we need to continue being a people that appreciate our history that has led us here, whilst learning from all the great knowledge humanity has to offer from all civilization and cultures. Now, if activists and all Sarawakians, current and future generations, continue to bear this in mind, then I can rest assured that our future generations are in safe hands. That's it.
So my advice would be, number one, always learn as much as you can. Especially the new generation, you have to learn how to broaden your mind, keep reading about local and global history or recent news, and discuss these topics with others. My second way is by getting to know your community. So this is important, especially as a Sarawakian, because getting to know your community is the best way you can help it. Each community has their own problems, which you can only fully understand if you turun tanah, if you actually go down, form relationships with the people, and understand the root of the problem, whatever the problem may be. You can't always find the right solution to any problem if you don't fully understand the problem, right? So, get to know your community to understand it. And the third one is definitely spend time with older generation Sarawakians. I personally think that older generation Sarawakians are brilliant. They have so many skills that that the Western world doesn't have anymore, that the Western world has lost touch of. But we Sarawakians, we still have this. So it's so important to keep in touch with the older generation. Yeah. So the older generation are also very self-sustainable, and by spending time with them, we can learn about their heritage and culture and hopefully pass them down so it never dies.
Okay, so the advice that I would give to the young people, my peers in my community, is that I think you should reach out more. Because to be honest, in the Kadazan community, usually it's a family connected thing. Like if you're from this family or you have this name, like this surname, that you should be prioritized. Maybe because I think maybe politicians or they tend to think macam yang, oh ini orang ketua kampung, but not necessarily ketua kampung. Like this is the major part of this family. I'm from this family. I'm a relative of this family, so they should get it first. So say if you're from that family or you want to start something, I think you should reach out to all your peers, and don't feel like you are threatened or your family name is threatened. I think you should be very open, and because there's no excuse for you to not reach out. Because of technology, everything is so easy. Like, you can just WhatsApp me for an event, or if you need my help, like, just do that. Reach out, and don't feel like you need to protect a certain part of you and you're scared to share it with other people. Because I feel like if we work together, we think collectively, I think we can really bring about real change. And you don't have to be scared of your forefathers or your parents or stuff like that. Like, you are not them, and you don't need to be them. But just continue what they've been doing lah. And then, how do I think they can play a part, as little as they may be, in helping fixing and amend what needs to be fixed? Play a part by just sharing information. Be very encouraging. Like, when people say, tidak payah lah batu, tidak apa-apa batu, you need to tell them no. Like, this is the time you need to start acting up. Don't worry about it. I'll be there every step of the way. Like, you really need to encourage. Encouragement is very important from the same community, so you tend to understand. It means a lot lah, and then you can do things differently. I don't know, like, I even now, because apart from Lankadazan, I noticed that there's another group that recently opened this year around Kamatan, which is the group Komuhakan. And Komuhakan means a youth group. I think they're doing things differently because they are more systematic, and they're a group of friends. So with me, Len Kadazan started by just me. I wanted it to be sustainable, so I started an Instagram page. But I think that they saw that, and then they think that they can gather their friends. I think that's the difference. The difference is that kids nowadays, they're more tech savvier than me. They have better connections. People who are deemed like very outspoken in school and they have more friends, they definitely should band together. Yeah.
And I agree. And, sometimes you just have to take matters, into our own hands to ignite change. At the end of the day, it's very important for youth today to feel empowered, informed, and have the capacity to have their voices heard at the decision-making table in the future. Youth voice in activism is important, as it is very instrumental in driving social change. Advocating for rights for women and girls, promoting access to quality healthcare, education, and gender equality, and the list goes on. So at the end of the day, I think most of us really do need a privilege check and pay attention to less unfortunate as well. And with that said, I think this will be the end of the interview, and I'm so thankful for you guys for sharing your insights and outlooks. It's very much appreciated. And yeah.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity. And Selamat Hari Malaysia.
Thank you very much, Saha, and Selamat Hari Malaysia.
Happy Malaysia Day to you. If you want to say like back at you, it's Inka Nagi Doit Diao. So Inka Nagi Doit Diao, Saha.
You too. Thank you so much, and have a good night.